Alright, this video is going to be about graphing from slope-intercept form. So let me remind you really quick what that means. So slope-intercept form is when we have an equation that is written in this form of y equals mx plus b. Okay, so when we're in this form, we have some important information we need to look at. So whatever that m is, that is the part that tells us the slope. And the b, that's the part that tells us the y-intercept. Now, whenever we're looking at a graph, what we're going to do is we're going to graph this y-intercept first. And then we're going to use the slope to help us figure out what the next point is going to be from there. So the slope is going to be the part that we look at second. Whenever we look at the slope, we're going to need to look at it as rise over run, because slope is telling us how steep this is going to be. This line is going to be how far up or down we need to go and how far to the right. So that's the information that we're going to look at. So if I had an equation that was, let's say for example, y equals 2x plus 3, then what I would know is that my slope is 2, or we might say 2 over 1 instead. So this is the m. And we can always put it over 1 to make it look like a fraction, so there's a rise and a run part. And then the y-intercept, or the b, that would be this 3 at the end. Okay, so if I had the equation y equals negative 1/3 x minus 4, then that would mean that on this one, the slope would be the negative 1/3, and the y-intercept would be negative 4. So that's the information you need to be able to look at whenever you see the equation. You need to know which part is the slope and which part is the y-intercept, because those are the numbers that you're going to use on the graph. So let's look at a graph. So if I go to my next page here. Alright, so I have a graph, and so first of all I'm going to go ahead and just draw in, well, let me write an equation. So let's make my equation y equals 2/3 x plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to draw in an x-axis and a y-axis. And I don't always do a very good job of drawing actually very straight lines. So just know I'm doing the best that I can. Alright, so 2/3 x plus 1. Remember, we want to look at that y-intercept first. So that is this plus 1 at the end. So I'm going to look for positive 1 on the y-axis, and I'm going to graph that point there. So positive 1 on the y-axis. I'm going to plot that point right there. Okay, so that's my first step. Then remember, second, we're going to look at the slope. So this slope is 2/3, a positive 2/3. So since it's positive, I'm going to go from this point that I just marked up 2. Okay, so remember, we're going from this point, and we're going to go up 1, 2, and since it's 2 over 3, now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the right. So remember, that was up 2 and right 3, and that gets me to my next point. So I'm going to make my point right there. That's 2/3. And then I can continue and do the same process from that point. I can go up 2 and right 3 again. Or if I run out of room from that plus 1, I can go down 2 and left 3, and that will still get me points that are on that same line. So if I draw a line through all of those red points that I just made, that is the line y equals 2/3 x plus 1. Okay, so let's look at one more while we're on this graph. So let's try this. Y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3. Okay, all right, so remember, we want to look at our y-intercept first. So that's going to be this negative 3. So on my graph, I'm going to go to negative 3 on the y-axis, since that is the y-intercept. And then from that point, I'm going to count my slope. Now notice this time our slope is negative. It's a negative 1/2. So we're going to go down 1 instead of up 1. Okay, follow my pointer here. So I'm going to go down 1 instead of up, but I'm still going to go to the right. So since my slope is negative 1/2, we're going to go down 1 and right 2, and that's going to be my next point. So I'm going to have a point right here. And then like we did before, I can continue that down 1, right 2 again. Or from my y-intercept, opposite, exact opposite for both parts. Instead of down and right, we can go up and left. And then I'm going to draw a line through those points. And the line through my green points is y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3. Okay. All right, let's look at 2 more examples, and then I'll leave you with that. Okay. All right, so here's my next equation. Y equals 2x plus 1. Okay. All right, so remember what we got to think about. First, y-intercept, count from there the slope. So if I look, my y-intercept is this plus 1. So I'm going to mark that on my graph. My slope is the 2, but I really need it to be a fraction so that I can look at this as rise and run, how far up and how far right. So that'd be 2 over 1. So from that red dot, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, and so on. Okay. We could also go down to the left 1 and get some more points that are along that line. Okay. So whenever you're graphing from slope-intercept form, you're graphing your y-intercept, and then you're counting from there your slope, up and right, or down and right, or exact opposite if you don't have room to go to the right anymore. Okay, so there's your quick review of graphing from slope-intercept form.